Show, helping you navigate the second half of your life. Today's show is sponsored by Find Houston Senior Care, your one-stop shop for everything senior care and senior living in the greater Houston area. Visit findhoustonseniorcare.com today. And now, here's your host, Catherine Watson. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Life After 50 show. As Find Houston Senior Care's owner, I'm proud to sponsor this show and bring experts in every week to try and help you navigate this world after 50. There's so much that we need to know about that we maybe have no clue we even need that information. So here we are today. We're going to be talking about something that affects a lot of people, and you don't have to be over 50 for this to affect you, but it does affect our senior population a lot, especially this year, I think, with the COVID situation going on. We're talking about the winter blues. And though Houston doesn't typically get snowy weather, we're not locked in for months at a time or anything, or even weeks at a time, it is very gloomy during the winter months. We have a lot of cloudy and rainy days, and you might not be able to even get out to take that walk. So we have brought Leah Stanley here today. She's going to talk to us about winning the winter blues battle. Leah, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Catherine. It is a pleasure to be here. I am so proud to be in the After 50 Club because, you know, it's a blessing. People laugh about, well, I don't know. I don't want to tell people I'm 50. Well, guess what? I'll tell you, I'm 53 and I'm glad to be here. So it's exciting to be part of the show and to be reaching into your audience. This is great.
Great. So tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am the author of the book, Goodnight Sweet, A Caregiver's Long Goodbye. It is the story of when I took care of my grandparents who both had dementia. My grandmother specifically had Alzheimer's. My grandfather had an unspecified dementia. And so I wrote the story of taking care of them and what I experienced, because when I took over the role, I was 29 years old. I had been married for 8 months, and it was appalling that I knew nothing, absolutely nothing about what to do. And so I had to learn everything kind of on the fly as it came. I had to learn and talk to people and research. And, you know, back in the antiquity days before the internet was really, really popular, you couldn't just look stuff up. You had to go find somebody that knew. And so it was really an ordeal. And I learned a great deal. One of the biggest things is people are shockingly unprepared for this. So I try to work with folks. I work with caregivers, trying to sort of walk them through and navigate it. I don't want to talk like an encyclopedia. Sometimes if we talk to professionals, they almost use big words and they intimidate, and they don't mean to. And so that's what I experienced. And I was just like, well, I don't know what that means. Explain what that means. So when I try to talk to caregivers, I try to talk like we're talking right now. We're just ordinary folks. These are just people. And so, you know, let's talk through some of the issues. And you are right. Winter blues, it's a real thing. It's not something you've made up. It's not something that, oh, you know, just jump out of it. You're in a funk and you'll be all right. You know, that sounds great. And maybe some people are, and maybe some of us just need to kind of give ourselves a swift kick and we'll be better. But what about those that are struggling, that are genuinely struggling, because there is a genuine issue? This is a genuine issue, and it needs to be addressed.
It is. Really and, you know, it's been documented. There's been studies on it. I know my mother-in-law suffered with it. And we tried some different things to help her. And vitamin D is one of them. You're not getting the vitamin D from the sun. And that does affect that. Vitamin D, of course, has been in the news a lot lately because of COVID, but it also affects the mood and the way we feel. So, and like I said, it affects some people more than others. It doesn't affect me as much as it maybe affects my husband, or it affected my mother-in-law. So we're all different in how it can affect you. But for those who are suffer from it, it's really a bad thing. And this year especially, we've already been stuck in houses for long periods of time, especially our senior community and the caregivers who care for those seniors. They may have been stuck in homes and not been able to get out like they usually do. So let's talk about some of the drivers of the winter blues.
I always tell people, take a look at where you are on the calendar. We just came through the fall season. The colors changed, and that was pretty. And then we had Thanksgiving, and that was nice. And then we had Christmas, and that was nice. And then we had New Year's, and that was nice. And then everything just stops. And so here we are. We have essentially almost like a wasteland. It's like a no man's land of no events, no activities really planned. So we're all kind of looking down the tunnel at, oh, March will come and spring break and it'll start to warm up and we can get back outside. That's a big deal. When you are stuck in the house, especially folks that like to get outside, they like to run or whatever. And like you said, here in Houston, we have typically good weather for the most part. We're warm. You can get out. I was laughing. We were riding our bikes in December and really early January. And I was just laughing, going, I was like, there's no way that I would have done this in Memphis, Tennessee, where I'm from, because it would have been too cold. And further north, of course, people are like, they don't even know what their bikes look like after August, pretty much, because it starts getting cold. So we don't typically have that here, but for folks that do, again, they kind of start that hibernation early. And even though you got the holidays and everything, and that's all great, you hit January and there's just nothing. There's nothing. There's no collective social gathering that we have, like the holidays.
Right.
That's a big deal. You look out the window, you see trees that are either stripped bare completely, or they have those dry, crumpled leaves, and they're brown and there's no color. So you've got that, and it's cooler. And again, a lot of times you can't get outside. And this all it's a real thing. The Mayo Clinic actually refers to it as the acronym SAD, which is Seasonal Affective Disorder. And as I said, as we were discussing, it is a genuine thing. It's not something you made up. And it was funny you mentioned about light. I had seen an article in the news many years ago where they talked about research scientists who go to the South Pole. They go to Antarctica for research. Well, you can imagine it's dark, like 24 hours, 7 days a week, dark for like 8 months. It may not be exactly that long, but it's some crazy long period of time that it is just dark outside. And they said they treat this sort of thing. They work with their scientists who are in that research environment by setting them in front of a light panel. And that light actually does do something to lift the mood. And I'm thinking, that is a great idea. Because don't we always feel better when the sun is out?
We bought one for my mother-in-law. Yeah, we did. We bought one for my mother-in-law and had her sit in front of it. She didn't like it. She didn't want to do it. She didn't understand. She had dementia and she would forget. And every day it's like, why are you doing this?
Why am I doing that? Right.
But it did seem to help. It did seem to help. So, you can buy them on Amazon or wherever.
A light box, I think they're referred to. Yep.
Yeah. I can't remember exactly what we looked for, but I think if you just Googled seasonal affective disorder light box, you'll find a slew of them.
Exactly.
And so I highly recommend if somebody is really suffering from that and they can't get out. Right. Because like I said, I think January and February are the yuckiest months in Houston, in my opinion. They just are. They're yucky. There's nothing good about them. Like you said, there's nothing fun going on. Right. It's dark. It's gloomy. We have, the days are shorter, so we're dealing with that. And then it's just, we have a lot of cloudy days and a lot of rainy and just damp.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
It's a big deal. It is, like I said, it is a real thing. And I always emphasize that because I know there are a lot of folks. I hear these people. It's like, it's just not a big deal. You just have to buck yourself up. You have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Again, that's all great advice. And sometimes we do need to make a choice. Sometimes we do have to say, okay, I'm going to get up. I'm going to do something. And there is validity to that. But again, there's something that's bona fide here. It deserves attention because too many people suffer with it And let's work for ways around that. Let's don't just let people be miserable. Let's encourage
Exactly.
people to get
Exactly.
better.
So we talked about the light box. What else can be done to combat the winter blues? What can we do?
Find something you enjoy doing. Oh my goodness, I cannot overemphasize this point. That is so crucial. When you've got a lot of stress working, you're in a high stress job, or you've got a lot of family dynamics. Our caregivers, mercy, the things that we go through as caregivers, it's some tough stuff going on out there. And if you just live day after day after day doing for other people or doing what has to be done, you're going to wear out. It's not going to take very long. So what I tell people is find something that you enjoy doing and try to make a point to get something that you enjoy done every day. My husband and I, we like to read together. It's the funniest thing. I always laugh. I'm like, I read stories to my husband and everybody's like, yeah, that sounds cool. Not really. He will sit on his tablet or his laptop and he'll play games or whatever. But I will read out loud, and we have a lot of the cozy mysteries, a lot of the old school Agatha Christie mysteries. We read a lot of good books like that. And what we will do is we'll turn on the television, and on YouTube, they have this, there's a bunch to choose from. It's coffee shop ambiance or cafe ambiance.
Right.
And you'll have some smooth jazz in the background, and they put the image up of like you're sitting in a coffee shop. And some of them are so detailed, they actually have cups of coffee with steam coming out. And it sets a mood. So we turn on our coffee shop ambiance and we read our cozy mystery. It is one of our favorite times of the day. We have so much fun. And we love sitting there picking each other's brains. Who do you think did it? Do you think? I don't know. I didn't see that coming, And that time that you think to yourself, well, what are you accomplishing? What are you doing? We are relaxing. We are enjoying time together. We are doing something that we like. And it is a time of the day that we truly look forward to. And I always recommend stuff like that. Isn't that fun?
I love that idea. That's awesome. You know what? That would be so good for these residential care homes.
Yes.
If they did something like that, put that on, gave everybody some coffee or some tea or whatever, hot chocolate or something, and they sat around and they read a chapter a day in a book, and then had a discussion about it. I think that would be just brilliant. So anybody out there that's listening right now, if you know somebody that has a residential care home, this is an idea for a new activity. I think it would be fun, and I think it would be super. Yeah, awesome.
Now the downside, I will throw this out as a disclaimer. The downside is that as you get toward the end of the book and you think you know who did it, and you may have another chapter, and we'll look at the book and we'll look at each other and we'll look at the clock and yeah, we can read one more chapter. So it's like, come on, we can read another chapter.
Yeah, you binge read just like you binge watch shows, right?
Exactly right.
That has been my biggest problem I love to read, but when I get hooked on a book, I cannot put it down.
I know.
So I will literally stay up all night long reading the stupid book,
Exactly. Been there. I know.
Oh, gosh.
One more chapter, we can do this. I know. But that's the beauty. It's so much fun. And that's nice to get into an activity. And whatever it may be. For us, we're talking about reading. I've had a friend of ours years ago loved tinkering with his car. Oh my goodness, his truck. He was an antique truck and it was his baby. And he went out and he fooled with it and he fiddled with it. Some people love yard work. That's a little tough in the wintertime, but you know what? We have house plants, we have indoor plants, we have things like that. So, again, just look for whatever that sweet spot is. And, I obviously encourage balance. Balance is the key. You can't stop everything you're supposed to do and only funnel into this one thing. And I'm just going to have fun all the time. Can't do that. But if you will make this a precious part of your day where you have a time that is set aside that, you know what, I'm not answering the phone, I've checked my email, I'm not dealing with this. We're going to do this right now and we're going to enjoy it. It may last 15 minutes. It may last 45 minutes, but do something you enjoy. And I really encourage, do something you enjoy with someone. Don't just do things by yourself. It's great to be by yourself. I think sometimes we need our alone time. I think women particularly seem to really enjoy that me time, and that's really
Mhm.
good and you need it. But find a companion, find someone. It may be a neighbor that you take a walk with. We have a dog. I love my dog. My dog is like
Mhm.
my third child, to be perfectly blunt. I mean,
Yep.
companionship. There is something to be said. We were not, God did not create us to function alone. We were made for
Right.
companionship.
Yes.
So get with somebody, find somebody you can talk to, maybe go sit at the actual coffee shop instead of using the YouTube one on TV and sit down and have a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, something. Go do something with someone that you enjoy being with and that you can contribute to their life and they contribute to yours. We all need that sense of community, but that sense
Right.
of, I'm really helping you. This bucks me up and it encourages me because I'm really helping you. And oh, look, okay, so I'm feeling a little down. And look, you've come and you've said something encouraging to me. Wow, I appreciate you being in my life.
And
It's a big
I think you just brought up something really important. And another way to help you get out of those winter blues is to volunteer somewhere,
yes.
to give back, to help
Exactly.
other people, because it takes the focus off of yourself.
Mhm.
We tend to, when we get in these states of depression, and that's what it is. A sad is a state of depression.
Right.
We focus inward. And I think by focusing outward on others, it helps to alleviate some of those feelings that we're having.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. You need it.
It's
And
a
it doesn't
win-win.
take long to see it because if you're talking to someone and suddenly you realize that, oh, hey, I can speak to this. Look, they're going through something. Oh, I had a similar situation and now I'm sharing my experience with you. It
Mhm.
builds me up to think that I can speak something into your life that's going to help you, but it may actually help the other person. And they're like, yeah, yeah, I appreciate that. That's a perspective I'd never thought of, something like that. These are important things. And the interesting thing is, this is important for all year long. This is not just something to help us hunker down through January and February. This is something that
Wow.
even in the summer months when the sun is out and it's 8:30 at
Mhm.
night, we still have daylight, you still need that community. So build a
Mhm.
community. Don't just build it for a short time. Don't just look at it as a temporary thing. Look at it as this is a lasting thing. This needs to be something that goes forward, carries me forward, and hopefully carries them forward too.
Mhm. Absolutely. And especially if you find yourself in a caregiving role at some point, it's so important to have that community, that village around you. I always tell people, if you're a caregiver, you cannot do it alone.
Mm-mm.
You have got to have a village. You've got to
Right.
have a village. And it doesn't necessarily have to be your own family.
Right.
It can be friends. It can be people from church. It can be people you meet on Facebook even that are there to support you. You can have people in lots of different roles. I have a Facebook friend that I can count on it every single day. She's going to post something funny. She's going to post something funny. So anytime I need a lift, I just run on over to Linda's page
That's
because
right.
it's going to have something that's going to make me chuckle and make me feel
Exactly.
good, and it's going to lift me up. She's that type of person, and she loves to lift people up. And if I really need a bolt, I just get on the phone or I text her and I say, hey, can we talk? And we just
Exactly.
have a little talk. So
Exactly.
you need those kinds of friends. You need friends that will just listen, no judgment, just listen and
Mhm.
let you vent. Sometimes we all need to vent
Oh,
about what's
so
going
true.
on.
That is the truth, and that's another aspect of the whole get rid of the winter blues thing. One of the things we can do, and I recommend this highly, it is okay to see a therapist or a
Mhm.
counselor. And a lot of people say, well, they can't really afford it, or they don't have
Mhm.
the money. They don't think they have the money because therapy is expensive. Well, it can be. However, check with your local church. A lot of churches will have counseling programs and they will not charge because they consider it part of their ministry. And
Right.
I know when I was going through the business with my grandparents, I had a counselor at my church, and she was phenomenal. And
Mhm.
I was so grateful for her wisdom. I could go in and just pour it all out, but then she could look at me and she could walk alongside me and help me understand why I felt the way I did, what I was thinking. She helped me understand that I was not crazy because When you're in the middle of that caregiving stuff,
Yeah.
wow, you can really get to thinking, okay, this is nuts. No one else is thinking like this. Well, see, that's not good either. That's not true. But if you will not talk to somebody about it, you may never know. You may truly think, oh, I'm the only one thinking this. No one else feels this way. But if you can talk to someone, either a professional therapist, a counselor, whatever, someone who's trained to do that, a good listener, that can be a wonderful, wonderful step toward healing in the process that you go through. A lot of insurance will cover therapists and different people, doctors with PhDs in psychology, or, some with master's degree, just, counselors, things like that. All of them play a vital role in mental health and well-being. And I'm telling you, I can't oversell it. I thank God that I've had the opportunity to have a therapist who has walked me through at different times in my life, because we all go through stuff. It doesn't matter who you are. And I laugh and I think of these people that we see a lot of times. They're like us. We're on a podcast, so people are looking, thinking, "Oh, look, they've got their act all together." And I'm just like, "Really? Not really.
We're humans. We're humans. We have stuff in our lives too.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's, everybody, and that's the thing. A lot of people, especially online, and that's why online stuff sometimes is criticized, because people will only put out the good stuff that's happening. And so other people are looking at that and they're thinking, oh gosh, there's something wrong with me, because look at her life and it's just perfect and wonderful. And that's not the truth. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Exactly. You really don't. So it's important. I recommend support groups highly.
Yes.
And there's a lot of caregiver support groups out there. One place you can go, and I'll put it up on the screen, is carepartners.org. And I think it's carepartnerstexas.org. Let's see.
Yeah, they are wonderful. They have so many resources and materials and sessions.
And they're doing all of their programs, their support groups online right now. So you don't even have to go anywhere.
Right.
And if you're uncomfortable, a lot of people say, well, I can't do that. I don't want to just share my feelings with people I don't know. Just go and sit and listen, because what will happen is you'll start realizing, other people are having the same problem. Wow. Oh, now that's how she solved that. So you will learn a lot from the other people who have maybe traveled that journey before you, and they need that help. So carepartnerstexas.org. The other organization I would go to is Alzheimer's Association. They have caregiver support groups as well. Very, very important.
Right. That is, again, it goes back to what we said earlier, community, the idea of community. We were not created to live alone and function alone.
We weren't.
And they laugh about the statistics. You hear people talk about, oh, men don't live as long if they're not married. And like we laugh about things like that. But you know what? There's a real fact there. I don't know that people do live, generally speaking, as long or as full of a life if they don't have that companionship in their lives. Right. And, you need friends, you need companionship, you need family.
Yes.
I mean, we do. And so don't discount, but I agree. There are people that, in fact, I laugh. My mom was one of those people. My mom was always like, oh, I can't go, and I don't want to go talk. I don't want to go tell everybody. But, Catherine, you made a great point. Even if you don't say anything, go listen. And because it's the truth, you will find out that there are other people feeling exactly the way you do. And then what fools around and happens is the person will sit there and they'll listen long enough. They'll go 2 or 3 times. And then finally, you'll feel warm enough and comfortable enough to be able to say, I'd like to weigh in here. I've been through this, or maybe they've been through something and they've heard someone else talking about, I'm wringing my head, I don't know what to do. And suddenly they realize, oh, wait, I can contribute to them. So it's not always about you getting something for you. Right. That's good. And we need that. But there's a balance there. It's what can you give to someone else? You may have something that someone else needs.
That is so true. That is so true. So, Leah, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about that dreaded D word and that dreaded E word. And I'm talking about diet and exercise because it
Whoa.
does play an important part in battling the blues.
It's enormous. It is a big, big deal. I mean, seriously, you do not have to look hard. Go on the internet and do Google searches on diet and exercise in relation to depression. The studies are everywhere. There is benefit, 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 and there's no downside. I mean, there's just no downside. So I cannot tell you, different foods will affect your mood. That one of the go-tos everybody talks about is sugar. I mean, we've known this for years. People will eat a lot of sugar and they'll have that, rush, that high rush in energy. And then suddenly there's the crash that comes in the trough period that comes and the mood that goes down with it and everything. So it's not just a physical feeling, it's a mental feeling. It affects mental health as well. Well, it stands to reason if sugar does that, clearly there's probably other food that does it as well. And that's why they are always talking about, like trying to get away from the artificial sweeteners, the artificial colors and the dyes, that these things have impact on not only the physical health, but the mood as well. So I urge people, I was amazed. I had a day in, it was 2013. So several years ago, it was Thanksgiving Day. And this is the day that we traditionally, eat everything in sight. And I got up that morning and I just felt lousy. And I started thinking about, it's like, I felt so bad. I was like looking around like, okay, am I all right? What's wrong? What's happening? It was at that moment, that day, that I began to look at what I was eating. I started reading labels and I was shocked because I had 2 younger kids, and the last thing in the world I wanted to do was be saddled with doing a lot of cooking. I've never been one of those folks that likes to cook. I feel I have no skill in this area. So it's kind of one of those, yeah, I have talents in other areas, not that one. So let's just, do what we have to do. But I began to look at what I was eating and I thought, it's not worth it. I need to take some time. I need to plan what I'm eating, because what I'm eating right now is going to affect me not only today, it's going to affect me as I go through my life. As I go, it's affecting my kids, it's affecting my husband, it's affecting everybody in our home. And as I started to clean up what I was eating, it was unbelievable. I lost weight and I wasn't even actually trying to. So for me, that was just a nice thing that happened, in addition to, now she's not eating artificial things anymore and things like that, processed foods, all those kinds of things. So I'm speaking really not just because, I read this on Google. I'm telling you what I personally experienced. My mood improved. My health, my energy. I mean, I'm telling you, there was no downside. If I had to laugh and say, well, if there was a downside, I guess it's that I needed to take a little more time to prep. I couldn't just sling something together at the last minute in the kitchen. But it was, like I said, it had every benefit and there was no downside. And then there was exercise. I did not exercise. So at the same time that I started looking at my food, I was just like, okay, well, I'll tell you what, I'm in this hotel. My husband was on a business trip and I was there and I was like, I'm going to get on this treadmill. Oh, Lord have mercy. I got on that treadmill. I was like, I don't know that I went a full 10 minutes. I mean, it was shocking. And I was at a really, really low speed and I almost felt lightheaded. I thought, oh my gosh, what's happening to me? And I was amazed that as I started to kind of push myself a little bit, come on, you can do this. So like the next day on the same trip, I went back and I got on that treadmill again. I still felt weird. And it took me some time. And I finally came home and actually bought a treadmill. And I wore the belt off that blame thing, because I laugh and I'm like, people buy treadmills and they're like, oh, you're going to hang your clothes on it. I never did that. I walked on it. I got on that thing and I built myself up, and I could walk at a good solid rate. I could walk over a mile. I was like, yeah, I can do this. I can do this. So for me, again, when you change the food, I changed the exercise. I found that I was building stamina. I was building strength, which, what does that do? That's got to be the best dopamine hit in the world, because all of a sudden I'm accomplishing something. Hey, I'm better now than I was last week. I'm better now than I was a month ago. I can do more now. And you start feeling like, yeah, this is good. Ooh, what else can I do? You start looking forward instead of just camping and marinating where you are.
Yeah.
So I laugh and tell people, if you can challenge yourself to push yourself to do better than you are right now, start right now. Start right where
just
you are
somewhere.
now.
Yeah.
That's it. And you don't need to go out and buy, $1,000 worth of equipment. You don't have to do that. If you have a neighborhood that you can get out and walk in, if you have to do that, take your dog for a walk. I mean, it's little things like that. And then I laugh. It's like, I've got stairs. I have laughed about the fact that I live in a house where I have my laundry's on one floor and my bedroom is on the other. And I moved from a house where it was the opposite. The bedroom was up and the laundry was down. And I've laughed. I'm like, I am seem doomed to walk laundry up and down stairs. And I'm thinking, this is but then I'm thinking, not really, because this keeps me moving. It keeps me, kind of pushing myself a little bit, again, not being stupid. I'm not saying go out there and start lifting, 100-pound weights. I mean, don't do anything. Don't injure yourself. Build yourself up, challenge yourself. See what you can do. What can I do today? And what can I do tomorrow that kind of pushes me a little further? So be healthy. But
the great thing is, with the internet now, there's lots of programs. You can go on YouTube and find classes in yoga and Tai Chi and Zumba and, just all kinds of exercise classes that are free.
Exactly.
They're free. Now there's some that you can pay if you want to do a higher level of exercise, or you want to be on a special program. That's fine. But for those of you who maybe don't have the funds, you can get a lot of stuff for free. And it's great. It's really, really, in fact, I had a guy at the beginning of the pandemic that, and I can't remember his name right now, but it was back in March. If you look back in my shows, he came on and he was actually giving away his program that normally was free. Was charged. He was giving it away for free to people for an unlimited time. I don't know if he's still doing that now. I'll have to go back and check. But, there's lots of stuff out there. There's lots of, you don't need, like you said, you don't need fancy equipment. A couple of soup cans can be great little weights in your hands.
That's right.
All kinds of things that you can do. So it's really important to get out there and just do something. Like you said, start wherever you are, even if it's just moving in your room. It's just walking around your house. My mother started exercising for the first time in her life when she was in her early 60s after my dad had a stroke.
Oh, mercy.
And he was told that he had to go to the gym and start exercising at the hospital. And they gave Mom a prescription too, because they said, if you go, he'll keep going. And so they went religiously until my dad died at 91. And Mother, at that time, of course, she didn't go for a while. And then she went back, and she went for a while, for about a year or two later. It's really what kept her going. She was in her late 80s. And I'm telling you, she could run circles around me in the gym, Leah. I'm not joking.
I believe it.
I asked her one day, she said, I can't do as much as I used to. I said, Mom, it's okay. I said, I'm just glad you're going back, since Daddy passed away. And I said, well, what are you doing? She said, well, I get on the treadmill at level 7 for about 20 minutes. And I'm like, oh,
that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, and then she got on the bicycle and it was like, oh my goodness. So she did this until she got to where she couldn't drive anymore. And she was too proud to accept rides from people, which was a shame.
Yeah.
We tried to get her. There were so many people that wanted to give her rides. Right. She didn't want to burden anybody. Oh. So she stopped going. But I would call her up and I'd say, Mom, what are you doing? Well, I'm walking up and down the hall. Now, she lived in a small little house. Yeah. But she would walk up and down, up and down, up and down. Yeah. She kept doing that until she became bedbound a few years later after an incident. But, she lived to be 93 and did really well. And I attribute it to the exercise.
I was going to say there's a correlation. I believe it. I believe
Huge.
keep your body moving. But if you sit and do nothing, all it's going to do is you're going to feel bad. You're going to have low energy. And I'm talking kind of in generalized terms, because I do understand there are people who have medical conditions and things to consider. So I don't mean to disparage anyone's situation, but if you are in a position where you can and you have a choice to be able to get up and move, I would encourage get up and move, get active, and you will see a difference. I really believe it. A good difference.
Leah, I sit at the computer a lot all day with my business. So I got one of the sit stand desks.
Yes.
And literally with a push of a button, I can go up. I'm not standing right now, but I can immediately stand up. And so I can stand there and do some leg lifts and do some squats while I'm working.
Exactly.
And that has been huge. That has been huge. It keeps me at least moving and not just sitting in one spot. We weren't designed to sit all day.
No, we were not. In fact, I have the same desk you're talking about that goes up and down, and I have a treadmill under mine. I have just a flat belt, so that way there's nothing coming up to interfere. But I will stand at that thing while I'm writing. I'm actually working on a companion guide for my book right now, so I'm hot and heavy into my research and writing. So I am standing there at my desk, walking on my treadmill and doing my work, and I love that too. It keeps me moving.
Yeah, yeah. Well, good. So what's our most important takeaway today? And gosh, there's a lot. I don't know that we can really say one is more important than the other.
I don't think so. But one thing it all funnels down to is this: we have a choice. And that is a key component in any situation, whatever's going on. We have a choice how we're going to respond to that situation. And so, I always encourage people, I've said, I've actually put this on Twitter and I've put this on other platforms, social media platforms. I encourage people, read the Psalms. If you look at the history of the kingdom of Israel when David was king, and David wrote a lot of the Psalms, it was not always smooth sailing for David. Things did not always go well. He faced a lot of challenges from his young days all the way up through the end of his life. But he would get out there and he would write these Psalms where he would just cry out to God. And sometimes he was just very candid about it. He was just I don't like what's going on. I hate what I see happening. But he would invariably turn it back around and tell God, but you're still God and I still praise you. There is so much comfort to be found in that. And there was such a realization that looking at somebody even like King David of Israel, he had a choice. He could have folded up shop when he had a previous king of Israel that was chasing him all over the place, trying to kill him. He had a choice and he just chose to take a good attitude. He chose to say, you know what? We're going to look for the good in this. We're going to look for the positive. We're going to keep moving forward. And it came out pretty well for him. He wound up being king of Israel, for a long, long time. I think he had a 40-year reign. It was like a really long, long reign. So I always tell people, it's like, look, we have a choice. Unfortunately, life can be just ugly sometimes. It just really can. Some stuff just goes on. And sometimes you have a family member that a deal's been handed to you and you didn't ask for it. And I get it. And like we were talking earlier, there's stuff that goes on. But remember, we have a choice. So let's not get all hung up on what we can't control. Let's look at what we can. What can we control? What can we actually realistically do? Sometimes that can be a freeing thought to realize you actually have a choice.
Yep, absolutely. The choice is yours. Leah, I appreciate you coming on the show. We've ran way over time, but I want to make sure that people can get in touch with you or find you or your book. So if you can give me that information, I'll type it in and put it up on the screen for all of our listeners today.
Absolutely. Well, on Facebook, I'm Leah Stanley. On Twitter, I am at One Care Voice. And of course, my website has all the information. Everything's on there. So that's leahstanley.com.
Okay, hold on. I don't type that fast. So Twitter was what? Twitter was what?
Twitter is at One Care Voice.
One spelled out?
One, O-N-E, One Care Voice. And of course, my website is leahstanley.com. So I kind of laugh. My husband's always like, I'm updating your website. So I always chuckle when I tell people, it's like, look, if you see something screwball, just send Chris an email, tell my husband, hey, this looks wonky. You need to fix this. So, because he seems to be in a constant state of updating.
Okay, and there's the website right there.
Right.
And if they want to buy your book, I presume they could find it on your website or find a link to get it.
It's on Amazon.com. Good Night Sweet, A Caregiver's Long Goodbye.
Great.
And certainly you will find the link on the website as well.
Well, again, thanks for being on the show today. Good topic. Hope we helped a lot of people.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Have a good day. Welcome to the Life After 50 show, helping you navigate the second half of your life. Today's show is sponsored by